Hello and welcome to the Overland Journal podcast. I'm your host, Scott Brady, and I am here in beautiful northern Namibia. And we're near the town of Apuo, and I just spent the last few days with the Land Rover team evaluating the new Defender. And I'm here with two very interesting folks, people that I think can really shed some insights into overland travel, especially in remote locations like this. We have David Sneath, who is the expedition leader for this particular trip, and Emma Easter, who handles a lot of the logistics for this kind of expedition. And they're going to talk about what they've learned, the lessons that they've learned along the way from these kinds of expeditions. Now, both of them are extremely experienced. Imagine having a full-time job of introducing others to new vehicles as they come to market, and in particular, Land Rover, who has this storied history of exploring the world with their vehicles. And they've always done it this way. They've always been very well planned in their logistics. And I think that there's a lot of lessons that we can take away from that. So thank you, both Emma and David, for being on the podcast today.
You're welcome.
Good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, David, you have had a long history with Land Rover. How long have you been working for Land Rover?
Over 40 years now.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. And I think that alone says so much about the organization, that you can maintain a passion for a brand like that for so long.
Yes, it's been an extraordinary experience throughout. Obviously, it has its highs and lows, but it gets under your skin. It's a passion.
No, I can see that. And we were having a conversation before the podcast started, and your career included you being an engineer on multiple platforms.
So I was an apprentice and then became an engineer, worked in engineering for 22, 23 years, then moved on into marketing.
And you got your chops the hard way. I mean, you started with P38, which would have been a challenging thing. And then you helped design the Mark III Range Rover, which I think was one of the best Range Rovers ever built, for both that combination of capability and luxury.
Yes, it was a transformation in the Range Rover brand. And I suppose my key role was to maintain its ability to cover some of the difficult terrain, as well as improving the on-road performance. So
yeah, it was shocking to see. I mean, it for a luxury SUV to start to see locking rear differentials. And if I recall, the early Mark III Range Rovers had exceptional articulation and wheel travel, which was unheard of in the class.
Yes, no, that was the real first introduction of independent suspension with the air suspension combination, and such things as cross-link valves between the front axle and the rear axle, as in side to side.
Sure.
Really gave us that capability.
And that would create this forced articulation. So as the one wheel was compressing, it was forcing air pressure into the downward wheel. So
yes, I mean, basically the way it worked was at a certain speed, the link valve would open, which would allow the airbag on the side of the car that was being pushed up into the wheel arch to go further, because the air had somewhere to go, and that pushed the air into the spring on the opposite side of the axle, which then meant that you always had contact with the ground with your tires.
And that makes sense. And then at a certain speed, you wouldn't want that to happen, because you'd get a lot of body roll, forced body roll, out of the vehicle.
Because obviously the breadth of capability or the dynamics was key to us as well.
Yeah, what an interesting vehicle, and what a series of interesting vehicles you both have worked on. And Emma, you've been with Land Rover, you said, for about 4 years now.
Yes.
And you're handling a lot of the logistics and planning. So give the listener a scope of what is involved for you with planning an expedition into northern Namibia in the middle of nowhere.
Well, we do roll it right back to 18, 12 months, where we look at the car, what attributes do we want to show, all of that. We work with our engineering team, our product team, and then we look at the location and what road routes we want to do and what location is going to suit the car. So we do, we talk amongst ourselves, and then we do some desktop research about the countries and political state and everything like that. And then a few of us narrow it down to, where's going to be the best. And then we go out on our recce's and actually see the places. David looks at the road routes. He finds something good. We look at the venues. We look at airports. Can we get people in and out easily? Sure. Like all the finite details. Because if you can't get people into the country easily, then you're not going to have an event.
It was so impressive to watch how well everything ran. In fact, yesterday morning, David, you said we're going to get into camp around 6:30, and I looked at my watch and we arrived at 6:32. Now, it's not that we were on this purely scripted adventure yesterday. We went down towards the Skeleton Coast. We went up a river basin. We had vehicles that were stuck. We were doing winching and kinetic recoveries. We were stopping for photo shoots, and we still arrived within 2 minutes of your estimation, which I'm sure that doesn't happen every time. But what it does show me is that there is a lot of intention behind that. And I think that that's something that we can all learn as travelers. We want to allow for serendipity. We want to allow for experiences and adventures to occur. But the more that we plan things, the better likelihood we have that we don't end up with that cascade of events where people start to get tired and they start to make poor judgments. What are some of the things that you have found, David, in planning these trips that allows you to make sure that people aren't being overtaxed, the vehicle isn't being overtaxed, etc.?
For me, there are three things. One is preparation. It's all down to preparation. So it's people preparation and vehicle preparation. If you look at people, have they had the right training? Have they got do they fit into the team? For me, you've got to have a very tight team to be able to deliver this with the intensity that we are here.
Yeah.
We all need to help each other. So there is no such thing as I haven't quite finished yet. Everybody won't sit down until everybody's finished.
Right.
Emma has explained that she's looking after logistics. So when we did lunch for you yesterday, we weren't just sat there waiting to do the next bit of driving. We were helping Emma do what she's trying to do, and then vice versa. So that's key. So people prep has Emma went and who hasn't got a lot of experience in driving in these conditions. So we sent her down to Eastner to allow her to get experience in the cars before she comes.
Sure. How was that experience, Emma, going through Eastner training?
Well, it was epic. It was amazing. But then you come somewhere like this and it
doesn't necessarily translate.
But what we've got at Eastner is an amazing experience, but nothing from driving on sand to the mud we experienced these last couple of days. It's just been great. And I've been sent out with an instructor here, and just learning everything has just been fantastic. I've got skills for life now with my driving.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think Land Rover has always done an exceptional job of, is how do you train up people to be able to do these kinds of expeditions? And I think back to the Camel Trophy and how much Land Rover was involved with that. How much were you involved with the Camel Trophy, David?
I was buried in engineering when that was going on, so I just touched the end of Freelander in the Patagonia expedition. Yeah, I was buried in Munich working on the Range Rover, but then I got involved in the sort of, I suppose, the son or cousin of, as in G4s, the G4s, and did all of those because I'd moved into run Land Rover Experience then. So
that would be, what an experience that would have been. Because so you did Bolivia and all of those.
Yeah, they were just phenomenal experiences. But and then we've done other programs since then. We've done Argentina with Discovery 3. We've done Iceland back in 2005, and it snowed. It's Yeah, we've had some epic experiences. Yeah. Epic. And that's all learning as well.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. And that kind of leads me on to the idea of Land Rover has always prided themselves on doing these expeditions with essentially stock vehicles.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you do need to upfit them in a way that makes them more safe, potentially more capable, but also better suited for the conditions in some ways. I noticed that there were some vehicle accessories that were added, Land Rover accessories, some non-Land Rover accessories. Tell me about how you normally look at how to upfit or prepare these cars for these remote expeditions.
Well, once you've understood the base car, the base product, and you've understood the accessories, you then have to look about where you're going. And, if you're in mainland Europe, you wouldn't need to carry an extra spare wheel, for example, because you could have a depot where you could get them from. But here we're out from Apuo, which is the last sort of centre of logistics that you've got, and we're out for 3 days, and we're covering over 680 kilometres in pretty arduous conditions. And if you need a spare wheel, somebody can't run one out to you. You've got to take everything with you. So, you look at the base car, you look at the accessories that you can get, and then you think, well, what else do I need? So we took, for example, the roof rack. We took the standard roof rack, and then said, right, we've got to fit an extra spare wheel up there. A lot of people use straps. I don't like straps because they wear out quite quickly, especially with the conditions that we're in. So we developed in-house an extra wheel quick release mechanism.
I saw that. Quite good.
That goes on the cars. We put high lift jacks on because some of the rivers that we're going through, they're very, very boggy, as you saw yesterday. And to be able to lift the car out when you can't winch it because it's sucked in, that's really important.
And how would you? I noticed that there were lunettes on the rear of the vehicle, rear recovery points that would easily accept the claw of a high lift.
Yeah.
How would you lift the front of the vehicle with a high lift?
On a monocoque, I don't like using high lift jacks, as you know, are lethal bits of equipment in inexperienced hands.
Right.
And so what we have the wheel lift. So
that
we
makes
put
sense.
that through the spokes. So it's pushing on the top of the rim. And I suppose, not the last resort, but you've got to be really stuck to be wanting to use one of those.
And I noticed that yesterday when we were doing vehicle recoveries, you guys brought along a long recovery rope. Now, it looked like it was a dynamic rope, but it wasn't a kinetic energy rope.
Correct. Kinetic energy ropes, and we do have them for the deep sand, again, you have to respect them with a great deal of respect.
Yeah, they're less precise for sure.
Yeah, and so therefore we have 3 sizes of rope. We have a metre, short one, 5 metre, and then 10 metres. So you saw us use our 10 metre yesterday. And there's a certain amount of give in those ropes.
Sure.
And that allows for delicate removal.
Sure. And I saw that with the one vehicle, vehicle that you did yesterday. That was great.
Yeah. So, I mean, yesterday we used the front recovery point, which is sort of 65 kilonewton capacity. So it can take a snatch. But why do that? Because, there's a lot of mass flying around.
Sure.
And of course, you guys are very keen to watch what's going on. So I've got to manage the safety of all of those recovery situations.
And you guys did a great job of that. You had good hand signals, very clear communication. All of the spotting was also very excellent as well. Roll down the windows, listen to the verbal commands. You guys had very clear hand signals in addition. And then on the winching recovery, I also noticed that you guys were working in concert on that as well.
Yeah.
And you had an external operator of the winch controller as opposed to the driver of the other vehicle. What was some of the motivation behind that strategy?
I think when you're using a vehicle to recover another vehicle, in the instance that we had yesterday, it is far better because you're making sure that you're paying the rope on in a neat fashion, because
you're able to
with
watch
the winch installation you've got, it is sort of inside a post box because it's a covered winch. It's not quite as easy. And if you've got the people, then you should use them. And every recovery for me is a training opportunity to make sure. So, for example, Emma's never winched in before. And probably wouldn't in the office, as it were.
Sure.
She's been sat in the vehicle and she's been helping us with that, putting your foot on the brake, keeping the engine RPM up to make sure that battery isn't being depleted.
Always learning.
Always learning. And I think you saw the recovery yesterday where the car was completely bogged.
It was.
In very gloopy soil, sand, gravel. And you've got to communicate with the driver that's trying to drive the vehicle that's being extracted out at the same time. So it's key to have as many good communication.
Yeah, I saw that. And they both went off without a hitch. And you guys made a couple corrections along the way to allow the vehicle to get pulled out, which was really neat to see. And it looks like you guys had a couple other accessories. You had the high lift, and you had some look like roto packs for additional fuel.
Yes, that's right. Yes, they are.
Because we were right at the limits of the range of the gasoline cars. The diesels had no trouble with the route, but towards the limits.
In the deep sand, especially when you're on sand mode, people are driving those cars enthusiastically, as you saw in the river. The only fuel station that we've got on this whole trip is here in Apuo.
Sure.
So I have to have fuel dumps, as we call them, at our overnight stops. And some of the journeys that we're doing are beyond the normal, and there isn't a fuel station. So we have to carry everything with us.
And I saw that you guys also had some recovery boards on the rack as well. Have you started to use those more regularly?
Yes, especially in sand. On the recce's, when you've really got yourself and one other vehicle, not 8 vehicles.
Sure.
And they work fantastically, and they work both in mud and sand, and you can use them for many, many things.
And has that been a relatively recent addition, or has Land Rover always used them, but they would just use the Marsden matting before?
Tended historically to use the aluminium sand ladders for a bolt, which are not particularly good for providing grip.
They're not.
They have their purpose, but these new lightweight ones are fantastic. And,
I think they work really well.
They're easy to extract from the sand when the car sort of buried them.
Yeah,
they work really well.
Yeah, it's so cool. For those that are listening too, we get the noises you can hear in the background. We've got some guinea fowl that's moving through the camp now, and other bird life. It's just it's very cool to be in this location. This part of, in fact, we've got a local cat just walking by. This is a beautiful part of the world. What inspires you? Because it looks like you're definitely trying to test the vehicle, but what are some of the characteristics that you're looking for when you're planning a route?
For me, it has to be a journey. I'm sort of almost a little obsessive with it's got to be a journey. Doing loops out of places with no purpose. So I look at the attributes of the vehicle, what we're trying to show, and then I go and find and keep searching till I find the routes that suit those attributes. So it's very difficult here to talk about on-road because we've got no sealed surface. We've got about 2 kilometres of that.
That's it. Yeah.
And that's,
which I loved.
Yeah. I don't think guys really believed me in the briefing when I said as soon as we go past the traffic lights, that's it for 3 days, no tarmac.
Yeah.
But it really is
awesome.
true.
That was awesome.
And it's about finding key features on that journey that test the vehicle out and allow you to test it in a real environment. I could build anything anywhere, but that wouldn't be authentic.
Right.
So everything is authentic.
Yeah.
And part of the journey is to see the views, the vistas, the people, the wildlife, and you do that by going to remote places. Because if you're on a what I call a tourist trail, then you don't get quite the same experience. And so Opuo is really the sort of most northerly place that people come to. There are very few people that go where we're taking you guys.
No question. In fact, Van Zel's Pass that we did a few days ago is considered a serious destination for overland travelers. People will come from around the world to have the opportunity to go experience that, and it was quite technical, and it certainly showcased the vehicle, and we could see by the carcasses of other cars at the bottom of the hill that there were people that didn't do well. Either the vehicle wasn't suitable for it or the driver wasn't suitable for it. And that's a reminder of where we were so remote that if we had any really serious incident, that would be quite a bit to get somebody out.
Yeah, and that's part of the planning that we put into it. So Lee, our medic, is travelling with us all times. And he's, looking after everything, the well-being of people, how people are feeling, if there are any insect bites, all that type of stuff.
Sure.
But also, if something untoward was to take place, then we're on it first point.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then the
communication as well. So you've got your phones that reach out anywhere you are that can call help, get a helicopter in if needs be.
And Emma, how do you interact with both the medical teams? Because it looks like you very much are focusing on wellness and the overall health of the group as well.
Yeah, it's important to make sure everyone's drinking enough water, not too tired. Like 3 days driving is a lot. Driver changes regularly. Are people eating? And we've got Lee from a medical, you've got bite or anything like that. Whereas I'm a bit more the other side are, people talking to each other, getting out, stretching their legs. Yeah, so there's not an accident and everyone's looked after. And
that is a good indicator. The one you just mentioned, are people talking to each other? I noticed that as people become more insular and they become more quiet, that usually is an indication of something else that's happening systemic, either within the group or within that individual. Once they start to they stop smiling, they stop communicating and talking with others, they might be getting dehydrated, they might be getting exhausted. And is that what you guys are looking for when you're out there?
Yeah, and it's quite nice on that long stretch we did yesterday where everyone is feeling a bit tired, but we're all talking to each other and saying, cows in the road, or watch out for this turn, this dip. And it's nice, people are having to pick up the radio and,
that's
get
smart.
Thinking. And
so they don't get tired?
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of the trips in a similar way like this, everything was on me for communication.
Right.
And, that's fine. But I did find that didn't bring the younger members of the team on in their skill set, because it's all a learning opportunity, as Emma's explained.
Sure.
And so we've all got a role. So Alex is our orator. Yeah. So he's giving you all the facts and figures.
He did such a great job.
Oh, yeah.
And that allows me to concentrate on navigation and making sure, like, for example, in Skeleton Coast, we had the warden. And they're very concerned about what we're doing and
where you're going,
where we're going. And so there's a constant communication with her as she's in our car with us. And I'm feeding that out to the instructors to say, right, watch out for this, do that. And that allows Alex to talk about the stuff that's going on. And I'm sort of managing the ship in the background.
Oh, and you guys did such a great job. What are some things that, in addition to this particular trip, David, like, for example, around G4, what were some additional considerations that you had for the vehicles in those environments?
I think it's really ensuring that you understand the environments you're going into before you specify the vehicle. Because obviously we're a global car manufacturer. So do you want right-hand drive? Do you want left-hand drive? What features do you want on the car? You know, do you want air conditioning? Do you not want air conditioning? Do you want petrol? Do you want diesel? As well as the sort of basic off-road features. Do you need a roof rack so you can put your kayak on? Do you want to put a bike on? Do you need recovery points? Do you need a tow bar?
Sure.
All of those things that you're going through the spec list, they're key to getting right in the first place.
In all of the trips that you've done, what was your favorite trip that you've done for Land Rover in this regard?
I think all of them are favourites.
Yeah.
And we've got some very fond memories, as you heard Nick and I talking at dinner last night, from having to push that little bit further beyond the edge of what you would consider a normal office job to be, to make sure that we get you home, because we don't know what's going to happen out there.
Sure.
So 2 days before you came here, massive biblical rains.
Yeah.
And that just took all the routes out of the river that we drove yesterday. So that river we were driving yesterday in November had grass, little odd pools to drive through, and you saw how epic it was yesterday.
It was impressive.
Yeah, and that's me just sort of reading the ground. Well, it's sort of hard there, it's soft there, and occasionally you get it wrong, but that creates this fantastic adventure that we've been on.
Yeah, you guys were doing 100% dead reckoning through that river. There was no definable route through there.
No, and it changes every day.
Sure.
That's the key thing. And Matt, who's with me, hasn't done as much as we've done, and so I've got him driving. And so I suppose in a way I'm instructing him as we go along, because that builds the confidence. And it's like Emma is driving herself. Yes, okay, I've got the tick to go to Eastner, but actually she's learning every day, as she's explained. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I noticed, Emma, was that you did a great job with brake modulation. Very smooth. You did a great job. And that shows that the company has invested in your driving skills, which will just mean future expeditions for you. That's great.
Well, that's the third time I'd come down that pass. First time, nearly ran David over. But every time, and I just grow in confidence every time. You can feel the car, and it builds and builds and builds. It's a great feeling when you get to the bottom as well.
I mean, this new vehicle, the Defender, has a character, and for me, if a car's got a character, it just makes me come alive.
Yeah.
And you feel the passion, and it's infectious. And it infects our core team that takes you out, but it's infected all of the journalists that have been on this trip with us. And when you arrive, you're all a bit jet lagged from the travel. And on day one, that's why I designed it. It was only 4 hours to get you dialed into the car and getting to know the routines and
know each other as well, which is quite important for you guys to chat amongst yourselves. So
you might have met your colleague, but we don't know who to put you with when you arrive, Scott. You might have had an argument on a previous launch or something.
No, everything was great. You guys did a good job of curating the people that were there. They were all hardy souls, and they all loved being in a bush camp, and there was no complaints that I heard. It seemed like everybody was very, very happy. So, and
there's no point in putting out your best opportunity for excitement on the first day.
Yeah.
Because then you've got 2 days of what's coming next. I'm a bit sort of, I've finished now.
Yeah, sure.
So I like to get it to slowly build all the way through. And even that trip back from Cesfontaine back up to Apur yesterday afternoon.
So fun.
It is a long way on those dusty roads. But as Emma says, the communication across the car with the comms and
It makes it fun.
It makes it fun.
It's a 2-hour rally drive. I don't know what you're talking about. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. Yes. No complaints at all. I mean, it was wonderful.
And do you push on to allow the more enthusiastic, capable drivers?
Sure.
But I've got to take the whole convoy with me.
It was great.
It's a slight relief when you come in unscathed into town.
Yeah, for sure. Now, since you've been with Land Rover for 40 years, you've probably owned a lot of Land Rover yourself. Do you have any idea how many Land Rovers you've personally owned?
Obviously, hopefully my wife's not listening. But,
well, they were all free. Let's go with that.
Well, she calls it my orphanage. So they find me. Find me. So, I mean, it's probably over 40, I should think, over the full length of my career. But currently, it's only 8.
How many? What are the Land Rovers you have now?
3 Series 1s, Series 2, Series 3, Defender 90, 2 Range Rovers, a 3-door and an LSE.
Oh, a 3-door. Beautiful. What year is your 3-door?
My 3-door is 72.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, year of my birth.
And then I also have a TVR. Everything's got a V8 in it. That's
the one requirement?
That's the one requirement.
Oh, that's nice. Now, so in all of those years, what would you say is your personal favorite Land Rover? If for some reason you could only own one, let's exclude the current models just to make it easier for you
That makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
I think for all-round capability, comfort, usability, look, feel, has to be my 3-door classic Range Rover.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I mean, I love my series trucks, but that, I know my wife and children would be quite happy to go on a massive journey in it because it's comfortable, it's roomy, it takes everything. And
they're beautiful.
Yeah, and I remember when they first came out, I was at school and a parent had bought one and they brought it to the sort of end of term cricket match and they had a picnic out of the boat and it was a blue one and that's just ingrained in my brain.
That blue was beautiful too. It was
I've always wanted one, and as soon as I could afford one, I bought one. I mean, it was a nail, but it was there.
And then you restored it yourself?
No, not really. It sort of we carried on and went on, did boys things with it.
Yeah, sure.
It didn't survive that long, but I knew I had to get another one.
So, okay, so that's what you have now.
So I've had the current one. Probably about 12 years now.
Oh, good for you. That's wonderful. And Emma, what's your favorite Land Rover?
Our current range, Range Rover Sport.
And you like the Range Rover Sport? Which motor in that one?
Really?
It's going to be a supercharged.
Yeah.
What? Who cares how much fuel costs, right?
It's just a good looking car.
Yeah. And of the older Land Rovers, which ones are your favorites?
Oh, I don't know. Probably the same as they. They're just great cars.
Yeah.
And I haven't driven a lot of the older range, but we've got our classic centre. I've sat in a few.
We did a drive for the 70th anniversary, which we were given the opportunity to go into both classic and heritage and get out. It was like a sort of dream list, and we put all of this together and we did a drive for a number of journalists around Solihull and stuff. And I think it's really important to take our new intake into the business through that lineage. So we have grads that come and have placement from engineering with us, which is an old contact, and they come into our department and they've never done anything like that before.
It's a whole other world to them.
But that's, once they've got their head around it, that we've left them with an experience for life, and they're taking that back into engineering, and that's all being fed back into the new cars.
And you've been with Land Rover for so long that how do you feel that connection still to the past? Do you feel that throughout the organization, that acknowledgement of the past? It sure seems like that Land Rover respects so much of its heritage.
Yes, I think you have to be very careful with it.
Yeah.
Because you have to move on. Yeah. And if we're entrenched in the past, then we wouldn't be alive, if that's the right term to use today.
Yeah.
So you've got to be cognizant of what's happened in the past.
Yeah, it wouldn't even be legal to sell a Series 1 Discovery or a Series 1 Land Rover today. It wouldn't even pass any of the safety requirements.
But also you'd be ignorant if you didn't look back at some of the excellent innovation that's taken place and re-evolve that into what you see today parked outside. That's effectively what's there. lots of learning and passion has gone into that new car, which is why it's got this character.
And what kind of advice would you give someone that was they just recently bought a Land Rover and they want to go do a significant trip like this? What kind of advice would you give them? What would be the first thing that you would tell someone if they came to you and said, David, I just bought a new Defender and I want to go to Namibia? What would be the first piece of advice you'd give them?
Research, read. You can't just walk into a shop, buy it and go and do it. Yeah. So it's about preparation. So research, preparation, and that's preparation of vehicle and people, as we talked about earlier in this podcast.
Yeah, get some training, etc. Yeah.
And go and talk to a number of people. Don't go to one perceived expert because they've got their own view and their own experiences. But if you look at the breadth of experience across the ride, there are many people that love to talk about things, but you've got to see people that have actually delivered.
And they've done it. They've done it. And how about you, Emma? What advice would you give to someone that was planning their first trip from the things that you've learned with Land Rover? What advice would you give people around planning and logistics?
I'd say preparation, again, is absolutely key. But you can plan, and things can still not go the way you want it to go. I mean, this is Africa.
Right.
And
right.
things are gonna come out, not work quite how you think in your head. So I think it's all about staying pretty calm, not flapping or stressing. And I think that's one of the key things I've learned, to just keep my cool and problem solve where you can.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Things aren't going to go always to how you dreamt they would be. But yeah, staying calm, problem solve, speaking to the team. I mean, we've got so many years of experience here and I'm learning every day from the guys I'm here with. So yeah, just keeping you cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we have to plan so that way we don't invite too many problems. But once we start the trip, we have to just kind of let the rest of it go and take it as it comes. Or else we become so obsessed with sticking to a plan or a certain outcome that we forget to stop.
And you'll forget to enjoy it.
Yeah,
if you're thinking, we're late, or, we didn't go this way. It's not always going to be perfect, but you never know what you might find on the way doing something else that could be even better. So,
like stopping in that little village and interacting with the locals and buying some bracelets, and I mean, they were beautiful people, and that if we hadn't stopped, we would have missed that rich moment.
Yeah,
but that's part of the journey. So when I ran into that place on my recce's, I thought, this is beautiful. Yeah, and a lot of people didn't want to stop because I'm concerned about interacting, and so you've got to encourage people to do that, to be brave and step outside their comfort, because then their journey becomes even richer.
Those memories.
And I think the key thing about coming to places like Africa, and it's the same wherever you go, is you've got to respect the local culture, and it's all about people connections. And so I spend a lot of time getting to know the local processes and talking to key players to make sure that what we're trying to do is acceptable to them from a cultural point of view. Because, big company like Land Rover coming into town, yes, okay, we're putting a lot of income back in because that's very important to us as well. But when we leave, we want them to invite us back. Yeah. That's a key thing for me.
And and we all want them to have as positive of an experience as we have. And I think as tourists, oftentimes they can get this idea that and they don't recognize it, but they're really taking a lot and they're not giving as much back. So stopping and shaking someone's hand.
Like John was saying the other night, that, speak to these people because they wanted to interact with you.
Yeah. That was really neat, just to stop and shake their hand and smile and interact with them, ask them how their day is and things like that. That's
but also
really
with the travellers.
Yeah.
We did that. We met those other guys in the gorge. Yeah. And they were just blown away.
They loved it.
What are you guys doing here? So you've got to build relationships.
You do.
Because you then are able to get a lot more out of them, because they sort of relax and they tell you about things, which then make it a richer experience for us as well.
Yeah, so agree. David and Emma, thank you both so much for the time. I I admire so much what you both do. And I was able to experience firsthand the results of your professionalism and your skills. And many of not only the vehicles you've talked about, David, but the other trips like G4 and everything else were so formative to my passion, not only for Land Rover, but for vehicle-based travel, that I thank you and all of those that have come before you that have done so much to inspire those of us that want to go see the world. So thank you both for your time this morning.
It's a great pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.